Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call to order the Finance and Governance Committee for July 27. Roll call and posting of the agenda.
Member Turan,
Here.
Member Basua,
Here.
Chair Zaragoza.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall kiosk on Tuesday, July 2021.
Thank you. Please join me to salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we do not, item number B, I do not have any public comments for this item, Madam Chair. No public comments for this item.
No public comments, Chair Zaragoza.
Okay, council members, our next item is a consent item, and this is the City Clerk Department, and it's approval of the minutes and the recommendation that the Finance and Governance Committee approve the minutes of April 27, 2021, and May 11, 2021, and May 25th, 2021, and June the 8th, 2021 for the regular meetings as presented. Council members, do you have any concerns or any additional information regarding this item? If not, we need a motion.
I will move to approve the minutes as written.
I will second.
Okay, that's first by Councilmember Turan and second by Councilwoman Basua. Roll call.
Member Basua,
Aye.
Member Turan,
Yes.
Chair Zaragoza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. Item D1, and I'm going to share the information, and we have one speaker on this item. And first of all, it's the Public Works Department, and the subject is a proposed formation of the City of Oxnard Community Facilities District Number 9, called the North Shore at Mandalay Bay, in approval of a deposit and reimbursement agreement and special tax disbursement agreement. Recommendation that the Finance Committee and Governance, that the Finance and Governance Committee recommend that the City Council adopt the following resolutions. Number 1, a resolution approving a deposit and reimbursement agreement and special tax disbursement agreement relating to the proposed City of Oxnard Community Facilities District Number 9, North Shore at Mandalay Bay. And number 2, a resolution of intention to establish the City of Oxnard Community Facilities District Number 9, North Shore and Mandalay. And 3, a resolution of intention to incur bonded indebtedness in the amount not to exceed $22 million with the proposed City of Oxnard Community Facility District Number 9, North Shore and Mandalay Bay. And council member, this is a pre-recorded item per Measure M. Do you have any concerns or items that the council would like to share at this time? Councilmember Taran.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few questions, but I'm wondering if we wanted to take the speaker first or if you'd like to go to questions.
Okay, let's go ahead and take the speaker first. Okay, the first speaker that we have is Debbie Mitchell.
Miss Debbie Mitchell.
Hello.
Hi, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, thank you.
Mhm.
Hello, and thank you for
Hello.
the opportunity to speak on this.
Mhm.
Coming from Mandalay, we're one of the assessment districts that has long lived with unintended consequences of the lack of forward thinking in the early days when our assessment district was formed. And that's what brought this to my attention. And regarding the proposed formation of number 9, it would seem to me that there's an element of ongoing testing and mitigation of hazardous materials that may be released into the environment. And I attended a public meeting where that was discussed along with the scientific data of what they were doing on the mitigation efforts. However, the water quality team in the harbor has been working and volunteering to monitor, apply for grants, and other resources to address the issues of water quality, particularly since the closure of the Mandalay generating station cooling pumps and the hydrology of the Edison Canal, Mandalay Bay, and Channel Islands Harbor has been dramatically changed due to the lack of circulation. And so I would like to see a formal agreement and commitment of involvement and responsiveness with all the local agencies and organizations already in place, and those that may be formed in the future to address this issue, both directly associated with the development as well as the greater needs of the entire harbor, which this development would be a part of, including but not limited to the surrounding areas of the Edison Canal. My second concern is that the language of the formation of the CFD mentions that there would be a reduction based on the number of units being ultimately occupied. However, there's no language regarding the scenario of the number potentially increasing. And I bring this up considering SB 9 and future laws that would allow the additional units to expand without consideration of impacts environmentally or otherwise, particularly on the resources of Oxnard. While lot splits would require local approval, addition ADUs would not. And it would seem prudent for the language of fiscal responsibility for potential services and infrastructure that additional needs become a requirement for all new agreements, considering the strain additional density will place on the city infrastructure and local programs. If allowable, I would like to see language that would address and require those fiscal considerations. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And I'd like to have our Assistant City Attorney, Ken, respond to that. Those items, there was a couple of items, environmental and also the ADUs.
Yes, I'd be happy to address those issues.
Mhm.
Miss Mitchell raised two questions. One related to the city's ability to impose new conditions on this project. The other related to if in the future there's additional density in this project because ADUs are developed. As to the first issue, the city does not have the ability to impose new conditions on the development as part of this CFD formation process, and here's why. Back in 2005, the city approved resolution number 12883, which approved the tentative map. And there were specific conditions associated with that development. One condition required compliance with NPDES permit regulations, and NPDES is the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. The other required compliance with detailed stormwater conditions and stormwater water quality conditions. Those are conditions 182 to 196 that require full treatment of runoff from the project. So compliance with the NPDES permit and the treatment of the stormwater pursuant to the requirements of these approvals would fulfill North Shore's obligations regarding water quality. The city doesn't have the ability to impose additional water quality obligations because the conditions of approval ensure that any runoff is fully treated before it enters the Edison Canal. As to the second issue relating to potential increased density for this project, to the extent that the development goes through a lot split, that would require city approval. Unfortunately, as it relates to ADUs, the state has preempted the city's ability to regulate provisions regarding ADUs. In fact, there's language which indicates the city cannot even conduct any type of environmental review of ADUs that are being constructed. And without the ability to conduct environmental review, we cannot impose additional environmental conditions. As an important aside, though, I want to note that currently the city's LCP does not allow ADUs within the coastal zone. That's a decision the council has made, and to date, they are not allowed. I do want to mention, though, that the way state law is going, we anticipate it may be required in the future. But it's important to reiterate that the state has preempted the city's ability to impose any environmental mitigation relating to ADUs.
So no ADUs are allowed in that area currently.
At this point in time, that is correct.
One thing, just and go back to Tehran. The environmental issue regarding the canal, isn't this project significantly away from the canal, or Or are we just talking about the environmental end of it?
The project actually is adjacent to the canal. It actually runs right next to the canal, but the conditions of approval imposed on this project 16 years ago require very robust stormwater treatment requirements under best management practices to ensure that the runoff does not negatively impact the waters of the United States, which
The
are within the
groundwater.
Edison Canal. So those are really important requirements, and there's also the requirement for ongoing monitoring of conditions on the site. That is for part of the project that is going through what is anticipated decades of ongoing monitoring to ensure there is no negative impacts.
And that's for the DTC, the department.
The
Toxic-
DTSC.
Right.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that explanation, Ken. Councilmember Tehran?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell, for calling in and speaking on this item. I have a couple of questions, 3 kind of basic questions, and then I have one question as a follow-up to Ms. Mitchell's comment. And I know Mr. Roselle's touched on it a little, but I just would like to elaborate a little on it as well. So the first of the 3 basic questions I have is I'm wondering if staff would mind explaining for the benefit of the public, what is a CFD? This is the item we have in front of us about the formation of the Community Facilities District for North Shore. So that's the first question. What is a CFD? Second question, why is one being formed for the North Shore development? Or in this case, we're looking to replace one that's existing. And the third question is, why is this item in front of us tonight to be forwarded, considered for forwarding to the council? So I'm wondering if those 3 basic questions could be asked, and then I have one follow-up one after that.
Okay, would staff member, is that Brian?
Good evening, Mayor, committee members.
Good evening.
I'm going to have Mr. Howlett address the question that
Mr. Holland?
Member Tehran asked.
Thank you, Councilmember Tron. In regards to what is a CFD, so a community facilities district is an agreement that's made between a developer and the city regarding the formation of a district where assessments can be placed on the homeowners of the property to pay for the construction of improvements, the facilities that are contained in that particular community that's constructed, and then also ongoing maintenance for those approved facilities in perpetuity. And then, as indicated in this case, there is actually a component in the bonded indebtedness to fund any long-term environmental remediation measures. So, why CFDs are formed? These are formed basically as an agreement between the developer and the city that the residents bear the cost for the improvements that are in their community, that it does not impact more onto the general fund operations. So we have our general fund areas that are, outside of any special districts that are the responsibility of the general fund to maintain, but people who choose to live in CFDs buy their properties there with the understanding that they will be assessed each year to pay for the ongoing maintenance of the improvements in the community that they live in. And so why is this being brought before the committee tonight? So there are 3 things that are, to summarize, there are 3 things. One, you're approving a resolution to approve a deposit and reimbursement agreement with the developer, a resolution of an intent to establish the CFD. So intent's the key word there. There's many things that are outlined that need to be done for the completion of the CFD. And then a resolution of intent to incur bonded indebtedness. And that's again to establish the bonds that pay for these improvements and the ongoing maintenance and any environmental remediation that's required in perpetuity. So I hope that answers your questions.
It does. Thank you, Mr. Howlett. And this isn't my follow-up question, but just to kind of clarify a little bit about what was shared right now, it sounds like in order to move forward with this development, if not for the CFD, it would be fiscally difficult for the city or the developer to move forward and take on what's needed in order to continue this development or to have this fall into the general fund moving forward as a new development within the city. Is that more or less correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And for my follow-up question regarding Ms. Mitchell's comment, and Mr. Rizal, thank you again for addressing it. In regards to the ADUs or a lot split, that if that were to occur in the future at these at this particular development, with the assessment that Mr. Hallett referred to, that each of the properties will be assessed, if looking at the staff report, if we anticipate 292 single-family residences, if we have, let's say, a handful of lot splits that happen, does that is a lot split now two different parcels that will now be assessed separately, or is it still one assessment on that parcel? And then are ADUs allowed to be counted in that assessment separately from the main domicile that will be on the parcel?
I'll be happy to answer that. Then I will ask.
Ken? Go ahead, Ken.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Mhm.
At this point in time, ADUs are not allowed to be separate legal parcels from the underlying home. So at this point in time, based on current state law, which is of course subject to change, the ADUs would remain part of the original home. So that will be counted as one property. If in the future, as there is some legislation that has been proposed, there is actually a lot split allowed with an ADU, then there is specific language in the formation documents that both of the lots would have to pay the assessment. And I will ask if Sarah could expound on that particular point.
Good evening. Yes, that's correct. The way that the rate and method of apportionment is written currently, which is the guiding document with the Community Facilities District, if there is an accessory dwelling unit on the same parcel with a primary unit, both of those units would be levied the special tax in the CFD.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate the response to that. And thank you, Mayor or Chair, for the time.
Thank you so much. I also like to share a couple of comments here, and this basically for the public, because we've talked about LMDs and CFDs and Melaruzas and so forth. But my understanding, according to the report and according to staff, that a CFD is known basically as a Melaruz and is used, and it was mentioned by staff, that is used for financing for a wide list of improvements and maintenances throughout the time of the CFD, and it requires a 2/3 vote. And secondly, the CFD are secured by a lien against the properties in order to pay for debt services on bonds. And see if I'm correct on that. If not, please correct me. And also believe one of the things that I like to share, once the CFD potentially is approved by council and so forth, I believe that in the future, which I think is extremely important, is that when the property goes on sales, that we make sure that the developer and the sales and the real estate agents come out with some very good disclosures to disclose to the purchasers in the future what is a CFD and what the responsibilities are. Because currently we're now looking into LMDs and CFDs and Melarusas, and some individuals that bought property many, many years ago now don't want to pay for the LMDs or CFDs and so forth. So I believe that this is a really important item, that once the property is developed, once they go on sale, that that those disclosures are really fine-tuned and bull marked, whatever it is, for the buyers to understand that. And my understanding too, Ken, is too, that the CFD is the owner and the developer can then be the 2/3 vote for the 292 single family. I mean, for the CFD. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, that is correct. At this point in time, there is one owner. So the owner would vote, assuming that they want the CFD, which they do, they would vote in support of the formation of the CFD. So there would be 100% support for the creation of the CFD.
Right, correct. And I understand also that it was talked about the Department of Toxic Substance Control, the DTSC, that there's a special tax for remediation and that for operation and maintenance that's required by DTSC, which I think is very significant for the public to understand that. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. This would allow the ongoing environmental monitoring. At this point in time, the property has been remediated where the homes will be located to a level which would allow human habitation. But this is a belt and suspenders to ensure that the property does not, there are not any additional issues, and to provide a funding mechanism for that monitoring for a period of time until the DTSC determines that that monitoring is no longer needed.
Thank you. And then the other question that I have is the $20 million. Is that potentially paid off in so many years? Is that what it is?
There are three different components of the CFD. One will be the services CFD, which would go on in perpetuity. The second would be the bonded indebtedness, which will pay for infrastructure. And once the bonds are paid off, then that portion of the CFD assessment would be reduced. And the third is for the environmental monitoring with DTSC. And as long as the DTSC requires the monitoring to continue, that portion of the CFD assessment would continue. But once the DTSC gives the all clear, then that portion of the assessment would also cease.
One of the things too, that my last comment here is that when we use the word in perpetuity, the buyers at that time should know that perpetuity means forever, not a limited time or whatever, but that's another word that I think should be highlighted in bold letters. Thank you. Councilman Turan.
Yes, thank you for the additional time, Mayor. Just very quickly, something you had mentioned that reminded me of something else I wanted to say. Again, I want to thank Ms. Mitchell for taking the time to send us written comment, but also call into tonight's meeting. I also have observed the increased level of interest in our special districts that we have throughout the city. I'm a little surprised that we only had one speaker tonight for this item. And I hope that the general public and those who have interest in our special districts will take a look at the staff report and look at what the intention of this is and what it provides for the city and for future residents of this development. And I encourage folks to please plan, if you have thoughts and comments on this, to send your written comments to the council, because if this goes forward after this committee, it will go to council. And also plan, if you would like, to speak at council or send written comments prior to our council meeting where this will go forward, if it moves past committee tonight. So I just wanted to mention that. And again, thank you, Ms. Mitchell, for calling in. And again, just my interest in seeing that we only had the one speaker on this item. So thank you for the extra time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And myself, I thank Debbie Mitchell for looking at understanding what the CFD is going to do, and also the environment, and also the concern about ADUs. But as council says, currently ADUs are not allowed over in that area. So Councilmember Basua, if you don't have additional questions, I'd like to reiterate the recommendations. And the recommendation would be number one, to a resolution approving the deposit and reimbursement agreement and the special tax disbursement agreement relating to the proposed City of Oxnard Community Facility District, number 9 North Shore and Mandalay Bay. And number 2, a resolution of intention to establish the City of Oxnard Community Facility District, number 9 North Shore and Mandalay Bay. And also a number 3, resolution of intent to incur a bonded indebtedness in the amount not to exceed $22 million within the proposed City of Oxnard Community Facility District, number 9 North Shore. And the recommendation is that the Finance and Governance Committee recommend that the City Council adopt the following resolutions. Do we have a motion?
I will motion to approve the recommended action.
Okay, motion by Councilwoman Basua,
And I will second.
a second by Councilman Turan. Roll call.
Chair Zaragoza,
Yes.
Member Turan,
Yes.
Member Basua.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you so much. And council members, our next item, item E, is there any items or future agendas you'd like to see for the Finance and Governance Committee at this time or for future? Okay, if not, then we are adjourned. And we'll be back at 6:45 for the Public Safety and Housing Development Committee. Thank you so much. We're adjourned.